actually listened to some of the conversation with Shauna Thompson, so our last episode of Friends with Fear series, and something that really stood out for me was this like gumption and like ability to really look at the options and like the excitement, and all her like ways of just being able to go and try things often came back to this common theme of having the strong connections that Shauna has with her friends and family. And actually, that's come up in a few of our conversations so far. And it's really resonated with this idea that to feel capable and comfortable in managing like the potential unwelcome repercussions that can come with doing something scary and like taking risks often comes down to the connections that you have available to you, both to be in those situations and to have you before choosing to go into those sort of major life choices. And I thought it would be interesting to sit with this a little bit today in our little reading link, because there's a whole wealth of research and evidence into how social connection is like immensely positive for your well-being in all senses, mental, physical, and everything else. And there's actually like a school of thought that's come out called relational thinking, and it seems to have emerged from efforts to balance out the more traditional psychiatry-led approach to well-being. And it seems to be like these models that are followed around a more biological view where you see each person as like an individual organism and how you can address the sort of more like matter-of-fact medical biological symptoms without thinking about how important the social connections that they have and the psychology that's going on in causing and managing any symptoms that are coming about. And relational thinking is something that was first coined, or at least emphasized for the first time, by a psychologist called Binswanger. And he was referencing about how we are fundamentally in a world that is based on human relating. And that can span things like interpersonal relationships, how we are socially connecting with each other, and also existentially. So that existential idea of we are all free agents acting on our own will. When we're alone and having these moments of solitude, we're still engaging in some sort of being with, because we are at that existential level of connecting with ourselves and the world. One of the reasons why this seems to have come about, that the sort of social connection hasn't been like a core part of understanding our well-being, is kind of like because the profession of mental health and well-being has come in the same sort of culture of very production line organizations and more risk-averse culture and just certain like resource limitations. And this is pulled out by some studies by Chu and colleagues, and they're all looking into like how they can improve inclusive practices for both parental and child well-being and how support is provided. It's well worth discussing this when we're thinking about like what could potentially be holding you back from making the decisions to live a life that's fuller and more authentic for you when you're experiencing these moments of fear, and like being more sensitive to risks holding you down. And it could be that rather than like going too much into like your own psychology and the ways that you're thinking, it's, are we also asking ourselves like, how are we relating to others? And like, what do those interactions look like? Are they setting us up to be able to get comfortable with fear and make those sort of life choices that will get you to where you want to be? Studies, one by this Redmond and Co, that have looked into how our friends and like romantic relationships are often what start to suffer when we're going through an experience of crisis, even though in another hand, like loads of studies show the positive impact that having those connections do for us to like protect us both psychologically and physically from stresses. And in a particular study that was really helpful by Jessica Martino and colleagues in 2015, and they have proposed what they call a like connection prescription. So modeling how GPs and the likes are more often now giving like exercise prescriptions And it's all based on that, like the core factors of what type of connection you're having, the dose, the frequency, and using that as a way of empowering someone's health and well-being. So they come to the core conclusion that you need, at least daily, some sort of positive interaction with a close, good relationship for you in a way that helps you feel closer to them. And then to have something that gives you that sense of belonging to a group on a weekly basis. Come to this conclusion through looking at a collection of studies, and these all evidence the benefits of having those sort of interactions on things like preventing obesity, reducing type 2 diabetes, the mortality of cancer patients, the symptoms of PTSD. It's like a whole range of things. And I'll put all the references in the notes. You can go and check these out yourselves. But there was one in particular, the diabetes one was like really stark for me. Like, I don't know that much about diabetes, but it seemed like a really neat example of just how measurable the difference is for having connection versus not on your well-being. And this study by Shire looks at a control group and an intervention group that have type 2 diabetes. And they look at how if they change the teaching style of diabetes information, you bring about a positive impact. So the control group was given the same information as the intervention group, but in like your traditional lecture style teaching. And then the intervention group were put into like learning clusters. So they were doing sort of participatory like group exercises rather than just like receiving the information. And they were asked to recruit participants into these clusters from people that they know, friends and family that meet the same criteria for the whole study. And then after 6 months, they measured the HbA1c and the blood glucose levels of both groups. And they found that the individuals in the intervention group, so the ones who did all the team building and like collaborative learning, their decreases in these levels was significantly greater than those in the control group. So the HbA1c had gone down by 0.81% in the intervention group versus 0.50% in the control group. And likewise for the blood glucose levels, it went down by 19.3 milligrams DL versus 8.72 for the control group. So it's just fascinating how you can really measure the difference in terms of like your well-being that having that different approach of like prioritizing social connection can have for putting you in a good place and really empowering your well-being. So a little bit of homework or like thinking for you is to think about this connection prescription and how you can give that to yourself. So perhaps think about like gather some data of your own on how are you connecting with others, and ask yourself things like, how frequently are you connecting with people? Is it on a daily basis? Is it less often? And then the intensity or like quality of your interactions. So are you like interacting with people who you have close ties to? Is it like a mixture of like strangers and new connections? Are these people that you have a positive connection with, or people that the relationship itself can cause stress for you? And are your conversations like at a deep level, or are they superficial? And that can be a way of seeing like how quality your relations are, your interactions. So are they fleeting or are they significant ones? And the types of them, are you having like a variety of connections? Are you doing volunteer groups with strangers? You're having your get-togethers with friends, family members? And like, are you part of any sort of group meetings? Like insight into how you're having your interactions, it could point to perhaps that's a way that you can like bolster yourself and a resource that would put you in a better place to sit with your fear and become more comfortable with making those sort of what can feel very risky decisions, because you've got that real energy source of connection. And it would be interesting if you keep reflecting on this, and not just doing it once, but as you go along and start really like consciously trying to have that sort of connection prescription for yourself, to start to notice how you're engaging with feelings of fear and sort of risk and the unknown and all these big decisions. And like, yeah, notice how it feels different if you've got a new way of interacting with people and almost like more intentional connection. And yeah, I'd love to know if that connection prescription was like really resonated with you as like a helpful way of going about this. And yeah, what sort of experiences you're having in terms of like how your connections are helping you engage with fear. So until next time.